the Russia-Ukraine war is drawing to its conclusion, let us try to understand what is happening on ground in Russia-Ukraine war and who is a victor and who is the loser in this war. Let's try to understand. If we look at it objectively, the Russia-Ukraine war, it started in the February of 2022 and continued for nearly 1100 days. And as of today, nearly 20% of Ukrainian territory is under Russian control. Even though Russia lost some of its territory to Ukraine, definitely the Russians have a decisive advantage in this war. The Western allies of Ukraine, who stood with Ukraine till date by providing it defensive equipment, by providing it military aid, and other kinds of support, even though they were providing it to Ukraine, Ukraine never had a chance to win this war. Primarily the reason being, Russia is a nuclear powered state and the war which is being fought in Ukraine, it is a war of attrition. War of attrition means it is a long drawn out war with no decisive advantage to either party, and usually in war of attrition there will not be a decisive victory for any country, but both the countries are going to lose resources, their economies are going to suffer. And in this war of attrition, the Americans right now under Trump administration are planning to withdraw from the Russia-Ukraine war. And if they withdraw from the Russia-Ukraine war, the main problem is that Ukrainian administration will not be able to defend itself against the Russian attack. And even though numerous sanctions have been imposed on Russia earlier for attacking Ukraine, but the Russians were able to escape most of these sanctions. Nearly 24,000 sanctions have been imposed by USA and its allies on Russia. But despite of the sanctions, the Russians, they in fact played a very important or played a very smart game by first and foremost diversifying their forex reserves. Earlier they used to hold a lot of dollar reserves, but as the American sanctions are going to hit them, they diversified their forex reserves. And as their sanctions on their oil and gas export too, they started having or building bilateral relations with Russia, with China, India and other countries in order to sell their oil and gas. Then apart from that, their closeness with China has increased substantially. And in fact, the Chinese Prime President Xi Jinping has stated that the Russia-China friendship is a limitless friendship. This way, the Russians are able to secure themselves despite of global sanctions. Their economy did not face significant problems. In fact, at one point of time, the American President Joe Biden, he said that the ruble is going to become a ruble. Ruble is the Russian currency, and he said that it is going to become a ruble. But today, even though after 3 years of sanctions nearly, the Russian currency, it did not depreciate much in comparison to the American dollar. Then apart from that, on the other side, the Americans are facing the burden of the war and they don't want to invest their resources in a war in which they can never win. That is the reason why Trump administration, it is pressurizing Zelensky in order to make peace with Putin. But the peace at what cost? What are the Russian interests? What are the Ukrainian interests? And on what terms the peace is going to happen? We have to wait and see. Russia has clearly stated that there is no possibility for it to return back the occupied territory to Ukraine. So it means that most probably the peace that is going to be established would be decisively advantage for Russia. And along with that, the recent American support to Russia in United Nations also clearly shows a shift in the American policy. And as the Americans are shrinking away from their responsibility across the world, it is very clear that the Ukrainians will never be able to continue this war, because of which reason Russia is supposed to be on the winning side of this war. Thank you.
కాంపిటేటివ్ ఎగ్జామ్ సంబంధించి ప్రత్యేకంగా సివిల్ సర్వీసెస్ ఎగ్జామ్ సంబంధించి ఏ ఆప్షన్ చూస్ చేసుకోవాలి, ప్రిపరేషన్ ఎప్పుడు స్టార్ట్ చేయాలి, ఏ బుక్స్ రిఫర్ చేయాలి, ఇలాంటి డౌట్స్ ఉంటే CSBIS అకాడమీని కాంటాక్ట్ అవ్వచ్చు. దీనికి సంబంధించి నా పర్సనల్ అపాయింట్మెంట్ ఈ వీడియో పైన డిస్ప్లే అవుతున్న కాంటాక్ట్ నెంబర్కి ఫోన్ చేసి తీసుకోవచ్చు.